Hello everybody, Conandra here, and welcome back to Assetto Corsa. We are here for a very exciting mod that has been released recently. I am not the first to do a video on this car, that is for sure. It is the buzz of the Assetto Corsa community. And that in itself is an interesting topic because I would say 10 years ago, heck maybe even 5 years ago, saying that the Miata is the most exciting addition to a racing game would be like the weirdest statement to come out of anybody's mouth. But this car has finally gotten to the point where people that know racing and people that know like actual pure driving experience know how great this car is. And I have personally been converted myself recently. In the past 5 years, I've been working on a Spec Miata team, so that obviously had a huge impact on the car's influence on me. And then in the past 2 or 3 years, I've actually started autocrossing with an MX-5 or with multiples, as people, let me drive their cars. And it is everything that everybody ever says about the car. It is just the purest driving experience you can get for the dollars. There's no comparison. So this mod was made by the Pure team, and they have done an outstanding job. I actually reached out to these guys early on in their development because they were putting so much emphasis on getting the details right. They were reaching out looking for people with good detailed pics or just information. So I actually sent them some information about the Spec Miata and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. These guys were absolutely dedicated to paying attention to every detail of the car. Now, as we sit here at the pits in Mugello, to be honest, my computer cannot do the graphics of this game or this car any justice at all. I actually had to step down to 720p just to record it because I could do 1080p, but then I'd have to turn down all the anti-aliasing and all the graphic settings, and it looks like crap. So I'm going to keep it at 720. Hey, sign. I want to look at the car. But yeah, I have all the settings as high as I could make them. Really, there's only so much you can say. It's very well done. It's extremely detailed. The headlights go up, and the headlights go down. Although I guess it won't do it in the pits here. Oh, I thought it would. But overall, yeah, the quality of the model and everything like that is outstanding. What I want to cover and what I really want to talk about is how the car drives, how the car handles. So let's get on track. So one of the things that they spent a lot of time on was the sounds. Now they may not be the nicest sounds in the world, and that tire squeal sound is still not great, but from what I can tell so far, extremely accurate sounds. Now this is a model of a bone stock MX-5, so keep that in mind. And these are the cars I have the most autocross experience with as far as Miatas go, and it's perfect, really. I mean, as soon as I started driving in it, I was just like, yep, that sounds exactly like what I remember. And I'm going to do something I very rarely do. Let's go to the chase camera. Because of that, do you hear that weird whistly, metallic whistle kind of sound up at high RPM? Gosh, it sounds so weird, doesn't it? That is exactly what they do. It is the strangest thing. It's almost as if the exhaust diameter is so small that the exhaust velocity is so high it makes it whistle. But every single stock MX-5 I've heard driven hard sounds exactly like that. I cannot drive in this view. That's just terrible. So sounds, I'm gonna give it 10 out of 10 on that. It's exactly what I would want it to be. The Rev Limiter is exactly perfect because Lord knows I spend a lot of time on the Rev Limiter in these cars because you don't always want to shift. So if I could ever get up to it, I would give you the example of that. Well, not this turn. There we go. Because, yeah, it's pretty common in autocross that I will, you know, you'll have a good 100 feet or so where you're just letting it sit on the second gear limiter because third is just not necessary, and you're just going to slow yourself down. So all of that is quite spot on. So the elephant in the room, how the car drives, how the car handles. It's been so long since I've been in a Assetto Corsa, and I really have missed it. I cannot speak highly enough of the physics engine for road cars in Assetto Corsa. It was a little bit of an interesting discussion I had recently with some people about how they were thinking Assetto Corsa needed more race cars and how it's not set up well for, you know, road racing series stuff like that, GT3 and all the other popular road racing series. I really don't think Assetto Corsa shines in that regard. It really shines in its road car handling. No other sim on the market does road cars as well as Assetto Corsa, in my opinion. And this car, this mod, is a great representation of that. This car handles exactly like I would expect it to. It does things that I have experienced with the car in real life. Some of that being negative. There are some very strange handling attributes to especially the first generation MX-5. But usually, all of those you can use to your advantage. There's so little power here that it gets really difficult to get yourself in trouble. So one of the great things is, we'll try and induce a little understeer here. And you see it, how when I lift off the throttle, I'll do it again here. Maybe hard to recognize in the video, but this car has just the perfect amount of lift-off oversteer. Obviously with the very good weight distribution, it's not like driving an MR2 or something like that, which you have to really pay attention to lift-off oversteer. This car, you can just use it perfectly. And then when you do get a little bit of too much oversteer, that's where one of the more difficult aspects of the car comes into play, correcting for that. It's such a short wheelbase, and overall it has a small pad on the track, so that kind of makes it more like driving a go-kart. But that also makes it more difficult to correct. One of the reasons like the S13 or the S14 240SX are so easy to drift is because of the longer wheelbase and overall weight distribution of the car. It just makes it a little bit easier to correct than a Miata would be. But it's not impossible, as you can see there. And like I said, you're going relatively so slow. It doesn't scare you when it gets sideways. And that is the same feeling I've had driving the car. It just feels so natural to hang at that little bit of sideways, especially off throttle. I think if we look back at some of the autocross footage that I've driven in the car, especially on the racetracks like Gainesville, it's one of the things I noted about the car and how much fun it was. Okay, there was the example of it being difficult to correct. The suspension is very soft. It has a lot of body roll and a lot of weight transfer when it does that. It's really awesome for the slower turns. However, when you have the car compressed for a very long time and then you pop out of a turn, sometimes if you're not ready for that weight transfer, it'll really catch you off guard. This is much larger and much faster than I've ever driven a Miata, you know, kind of competitively. But I still get the feeling that this is pretty much what it would be like. I'm curious to see what the spec Miata will be like Obviously, I've worked on one. I've never actually driven the car at speed. But those cars are so close to stock that it's not going to be a dramatic change. They do roll a little bit less, but they still do. They get into a turn, they squat their butt down to the ground, and they just kind of rotate around the turns. It's just how the Miata drives. So when I see one with coilovers on it and slammed to the ground and super stiff, it just makes me wonder, how that car drives now, because you just took away, to me, the best part of the handling of a Miata. So I guess it's just no longer the same kind of driving car. There was another example of lifting off, getting the nose to tuck in, and I think it may actually do a little bit, would have to do with a little bit with that weight transfer. You lift off the gas and the back end kind of pops up a little bit, and you're putting a lot more weight and grip into the front tires. Alright, well, I think that's about all of the thoughts I can get out of my brain here. I'm going to take to the car to another track, something that may be a little bit more resembling the kind of driving I've done with the car. Oh, yeah, very, 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 very hard to drift a Miata. Not impossible, but very hard. Headlights go up, headlights go down. Headlights go up, headlights go down. That is the level of detail these guys have done. The headlights, have the same speed as the real car. They don't just pop right up. They're very slow. They're kind of just and we're going up now. I do wish you could put them up and down without the headlights on, but we'll live with that. So, where the heck are we? We are at the Sonoma go-kart track. This is a track that I tested out the go-karts at. And I thought that this would be a good place to get a sense of how the car behaves in low-speed, autocross-esque kind of settings. This is actually probably a little too tight. We're going to be going down to first gear probably pretty often. And that doesn't typically happen in the autocrosses that I do. But I'll still get somewhat of an idea, I think. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit tighter. Whoop! Sand is slippery, sand is slippery. I don't know, maybe it's a bogus theory, but it doesn't hurt to try. Alright, headlights, you're kind of blocking my view here. Right. Gain a little speed. Yeah, I'm starting to get a handle of that. One thing I have noticed that's a little peculiar is that the steering wheel ratio to what is visually represented in game is not 1-to-1, and I do have my wheel set to 900 degrees, both in-game and out, so I'm not 100% sure why that is. Could be something to do with my settings, could just be the way they chose to represent it. But either way, I mean, the visual representation might be off, but the steering feel is fine. The actual weight of it and the ratio of it seems fine. Yeah, I don't know how much this is teaching me. It was a good theory, but I think it's just maybe a little bit too tight. Another thing to keep in mind is that this car is modeled to have just normal stock tires on it. The cars that I'm driving have, 200 tread wear autocross specific tires, essentially. The ones I typically seem to be using on these are the Dunlops, the Z2s, I believe they are, which are just think about 20 years, of tire technology. We've come a long way. A stock Miata with those tires on it versus a stock Miata with the tires that came on from the factory. probably a pretty impressive amount of change. And we'll just go through here. Nobody's looking. This is really making me wish that there was some actual autocross courses here in Assetto Corsa. You know, Live for Speed had that awesome layout editor. You can make your own. I don't see any reason we couldn't have that over here. Whoop. Nice save, nice save. Just toss it some wheel and move on with your life. That's how you drive a Miata. See, that's the section that just feels right. Then it gets a little too tight after that, but it's not bad. Alright, to finish out the video and my thoughts on the car, let's take it through a hill climb course, just a modded one. This is the Alps. I believe this is a R-Factor port or something like that, but it's still a pretty nice layout. Let's give it a rousing start. I'll usually try and get it up to about 3,500 4, and then just drop the clutch. Yeah, perfect. Get a little bit of wheel spin just to kind of get your momentum going, and away you go. It is like obnoxiously bright. Something I've noticed with the more recent updates of Assetto Corsa is that the modded tracks seem to be having some kind of lighting issue. But as long as I can see where I'm going, we'll be fine. Oop, some gears. I've never actually driven one on any kind of interesting roads or anything of that nature, but I am sure it would be fun. We don't really have interesting roads here in Florida. We just have roads. Everything's point A to point B. Overall, just fantastic job on this. I can't say enough good things about it. This is exactly the kind of stuff that makes me excited for this game having a mod community. Get out of your mouse. I guess I want to stay. You know, you look at the mods like the Lamborghini Miura, and that got added into the game, or will be added into the game for the next free DLC. This is another one that will probably, I would say, get added if they can acquire the license for it, because the quality is easily on par, if not better, than some of the stuff Kunos does, and that's saying a lot, because they put a lot of attention to detail in their cars. That's kind of their thing. Alright, let's see if we can do some stock Miata drifting. That's kind of about the most you can do. Just doesn't have the power to carry on with it. But you use that off throttle oversteer to get it rotated while staying on the throttle the entire exit. There's another sound that's perfect. You hear that little kind of like tinkety-tink sound when transferring from off throttle to full throttle? Yeah, that one. I guess it's the sound of like the gear set and everything. That sounds perfect. Joe's and DJ's cars make the same exact sound. Nice. You gotta be ready for it to snap though. Like I said, once the suspension rebounds, you gotta be prepared for it, or it'll send you way the other way. Nice. This is quite enjoyable. I can't wait to try and get a group together to do some racing here in Assetto Corsa. That is one of my goals for the year, is to try and find a group of people that enjoy Assetto Corsa and would be willing to do like some recording of a series, like I guess you would say a league of people that all record their perspective and stuff like that. Alright, there's the end of the course, I think. Yep. I think that would be a lot of fun, and this is certainly a car that would be a lot of fun to do that with. Alright, well, this will be where I will end it off for this video. A+ all around, 10 out of 10. Easily I would say easily the best mod for Assetto Corsa made to this point. Just the level of detail, the absolute necessity of this car being in the game, everything about it. It's perfect. Go download it, go try it. Hopefully in the not so distant future you'll be seeing more Assetto Corsa content from me as the next patch gets released. Thanks as always for watching, and I will see